with an abundance of vegetation and wildlife, and opportunities for a variety of recreational, aesthetic, and commercial activities. Louisiana Pacific Canada Limited is committed to managing the forest to ensure that there is a balance between wood that is harvested and wood that is left for wildlife habitat and other uses. The whole idea behind aspen management through timber harvesting is to ensure that future generations have mature, healthy aspen stands to enjoy. Aspen, by its very nature, is an easily renewable resource. This species is unusual in its rapid growth. It grows several times faster than softwood. It's also special in the way it regenerates. Aspen has a natural tendency to sprout or sucker from the roots of older aspen trees. Aspen trees are in fact clones, or genetic duplicates, stemming from the same parent root system. When you see a hillside of aspen in the fall, you can distinguish the clone boundaries by colors indicating the different parent rootstocks. Aspen root systems contain many dormant buds of new trees. These are held in check by a chemical in the tree crowns called auxin. A tremendous root suckering response happens when two conditions are met. When the tree crowns are removed, either by cutting, fire, insects, or disease, and when a warming of the soil takes place due to an absence of shade. Aspen is also unusual in that the outer bark is actually living cells. You can nick it and see green wood, whereas with pine or spruce, the outer bark is made of dead cells that are sloughing off. This makes aspen susceptible to more insects and diseases than many other species, so it often declines due to fungi and insects that get into it and decay the tree. Forestry managers have identified the average age of aspen in Western Canada to be between 70 and 90 years old. Aspen matures at 65 to 80 years and begins to deteriorate shortly thereafter. Aspen is also known as a seral, temporary, or transitional species. If it isn't managed properly, new growth may be minimal. Other species sometimes take over, and the aspen forest is gone forever. If you were to leave a site alone for 300 years, it would likely evolve into an open meadow or be replaced by spruce or fir. Because of the age of our aspen stands in Western Canada, intensive management through timber harvesting is necessary to ensure a new crop returns to the same site. Otherwise, many aspen stands will be lost through natural decay and succession. Also, overmature trees may be lost to forest fire. And dead, fallen aspen can create a maze, making it difficult for animals and people to get through the forest. If we want to keep aspen on a site, we have to rejuvenate it. And the best way to do so is by clear cutting to encourage suckering. Forces such as wind and fire devastate many patches of forest at a time. By clear cutting aspen in small blocks, LP can simulate the clearing caused by natural forces. This encourages aspen trees to regrow naturally and quickly through root suckering. Selective cutting, where only clumps of trees are removed from the cut block, is another method of harvesting. However, it does not encourage root suckering, so the forest regenerates slowly, if at all. This area was selective cut 3 years ago, and the regrowth has been slow for aspen. On average, it's only 4 feet high. On the other hand, this area was clear cut only 2 years ago, and the regrowth is already 6 feet high. Aspen forests thrive when clear cut responsibly, and Louisiana Pacific is doing just that. Louisiana Pacific Canada is in the business of utilizing and regenerating aspen forests. They are a major manufacturer and innovator in the forest industry. They develop environmentally sound wood products from previously little-used species, such as trembling aspen and balsam poplar. And while some may consider aspen to be a throwaway species, LP sees it as a useful resource for wood products like oriented strand board. Their factory in Dawson Creek has been turning aspen into OSB for years. And LP has made careful forest management the rule from day one. Just ask Gary Loisel. He owns a nearby ranch where the company has helped him Like other farmers and ranchers, plan and manage aspen growth to create more grazing area.
We work closely with Louisiana Pacific of Dawson Creek, BC, on harvesting of the mature aspen in our grazing permit area. So we're very pleased with our working relationship with Louisiana Pacific as well as the forestry, and we're pleased to be involved in the process of the environment and seeing that renewable resource carries on.
This is beneficial as far as I'm concerned because it opens up a lot of good grazing area for me. The land is virtually useless as it stood with the poplar on it. Very little grazing ability. This land would have been logged or cut, piled, and burned previously. This way we're utilizing all of the available usable wood, and it's a very definite benefit to me. The other side of this is that the way they're logging it, it's going to make it very accessible and very little cleanup on my part.
Like other things in life, it's how you finish the job that counts. Louisiana Pacific pays careful attention to site cleanup. As well, logging roads are deactivated and the soil is decompacted. Louisiana Pacific knows that there must be a balance between forestry, agricultural, recreational, and other uses, and they participate in multiple use research, such as the Holy Cow Project. This is a cooperative research project between Louisiana Pacific, the BC Ministry of Forests, and local farmers.
I think it was ahead of its time. And some of the main objectives are to study the effects of aspen clear cutting, both in summer, winter, as well as no clear cutting, on aspen regeneration and forage regeneration, because a lot of these blocks occupy areas where there are concurrent timber sales and grazing permits being issued.
There is a potential for conflict between farmers and foresters. Cattle producers perceive that clear cutting will dramatically reduce the forage for their animals. Foresters perceive that uncontrolled grazing will destroy regenerating aspen forests. Initial research results show that clear cutting is not a problem, and that rotational grazing reduces the risk to aspen regeneration.
Clear cutting of aspen is particularly good for increasing the forage availability as well as the quality. I think probably one of the most valuable lessons we're learning from practicing this kind of research is that you got to please more than one user at a time. Everybody's screaming for their share of the pie or to be able to use the resource, and it's their right, certainly.
There's input from every part when it's a multi-use area, and it's worked out very well. Sometimes the process takes a year or two to evolve to the point where there's actually harvesting taking place, but there's a lot of good planning has went into place, and we're very pleased with what the results are.
Research is only one part of Louisiana Pacific's planning process. Pre-harvest surveys are also important. The company conducts pre-harvest surveys on all proposed cut blocks on Crown land prior to harvesting. Louisiana Pacific is also involved in a special project in British Columbia to train First Nation students to do pre-harvest surveys on aspen stands. These surveys help to determine the impact of harvesting on wildlife habitat, vegetation, water sources, and other important historical, cultural, and environmental features.
If we find any rivers or creeks or different kinds of waterways, we mark them on a map and we stay a certain distance away from them. If we find a lot of wildlife in the area, our plans may change in that we might change the size of the block, or we might change the way the boundary is. We might make more nooks in it for places that animals can hide away in.
Contrary to fears about the effects of aspen harvesting on local wildlife, history has shown that proper management of this resource may actually encourage an increase in some species and a return of others.
With the mature stands of timber like we had 9 years ago, there was very little grass underneath, and there wasn't very many. Our wildlife populations were just about virtually nil 9 years ago, and since we had our clear cuts over the last 8 years, our wildlife population is improved by 5-fold from what we had before. And right now, there's, in the fall time In wintertime, there's about 75 head of elk use this area, and a lot of deer. They've multiplied tremendously.
I feel there will be minimal impact on the wildlife because of the buffer zone that we're leaving around the clear-cut area. In actual fact, I believe with the improved grazing, it will benefit them as well as the cattle because they graze in the same areas.
Since the area is opened up with our clear cuts, there's been a lot of smaller animals moved in, and also from that you get a lot of eagles and birds.
The wildlife has stayed a lot better than what even Fish and Wildlife thought they would. The birds haven't left. As a matter of fact, I think they're getting fatter. I think there's more mice now for them to live on, but they've stayed really well. And Louisiana Pacific had no questions. They never even flinched when I said I wanted this tree left or that tree left or this circle of bush left. There was never any question about it. It was done exactly the way I wanted it.
What we're finding now is that by taking the over-mature aspen off that area and the regrowth, that we've had a lot of wildlife that have come back into our area, such as deer. There's a major herd of elk now, moose, sharp-tailed grouse, as well as willow grouse. So we have bear, moose, everything just on less than 5 miles from Dawson Creek.
Responsible management of the forest includes proper planning and careful harvesting.
Deer particularly like curved boundaries. Like deer, moose, and elk like to feed around the edge of a block. And so if there's more curved boundaries, it gives them more places to feed, and they can, they're really close to the bush. If they're frightened or hear a noise, they can run into the bush quite quickly. If we find an owl's nest or an eagle's nest in the area, if it's in our block, we'll try and move the boundary so the boundary goes around the nest. Or else we will leave an island of trees around the nest so it doesn't disturb the animals, the birds, as much.
Of course, Louisiana Pacific considers the need for buffer zones in their planning process. Buffer zones are areas that are managed to enhance wildlife habitat, water sources, aesthetics, and recreational uses. In addition, spaces are left between areas to be cut and are not harvested until the forest is regenerated on the cut-over area. Not only does Louisiana Pacific leave buffer zones, they also cut aspen forests in small blocks, less than 50 hectares on average. LP uses all available methods: mechanical, manual, and in some small lots or environmentally sensitive areas, horse logging is used. Perhaps the most exciting aspect about aspen management through timber harvesting is the tremendous regrowth that follows a cut. There is no need to manually plant aspen since it resprouts naturally. Aspen is by nature a weed in that the more you cut it, the more it grows. Foresters have found aspen to be ideal for intensive management because replanting efforts and costs are not necessary to ensure regrowth. Aspen sprouts from the root system after harvesting takes place, so the need to hand plant is unnecessary. Woodlot owners are clearly seeing financial rewards from aspen harvesting. It grows faster than other species, meaning more aspen can be cut and sold over a lifetime than other trees. Aspen harvesting benefits everyone in its region. People get jobs, harvesting equipment is sold, trucks need repair, gas stations sell more fuel, and more money is spent everywhere, up to millions of dollars, all from harvesting aspen.
And the growth we see is tremendous. We think there's a tremendous future.
A tremendous future. That's what Louisiana Pacific wants for our forests and for everyone. By harvesting aspen responsibly, Louisiana Pacific is regenerating the forest. Their track record shows that by working with government and private citizens, they are doing just that.
And if we can have more, certainly more collaboration between our industry and government counterparts, it's gonna bring everybody closer in terms of meeting that common goal of an improved resource, both quantity and quality, and that's where it's at.